My sisters rented out my house for profit and kept the money. But when I found out, I took revenge. My name is Ryan, and I'm sharing a story about my family drama, specifically involving my two older sisters, Claire and Olivia, and their husbands. My wife, Sophie, and I prefer to keep to ourselves, mostly because family gatherings with my sisters and their families often turn exhausting quickly. Sophie and I chose not to have kids, which adds another layer of tension, as my sisters often imply envy towards our lifestyle, though they'd never admit it openly. Everything began on a typical sunny afternoon when my parents, Tom and Linda, decided to host one of their frequent barbecues. While I generally avoid these gatherings due to past annoyances, Sophie tends to be more forgiving. After some gentle pressure from my mom, we reluctantly agreed to make an appearance. When we arrived, about 20 people were scattered around the yard, including my sisters, their spouses, and their children. Claire and Olivia, along with their husbands, Mark and Jason, were already quite tipsy, their loud laughter echoing through the yard. My dad had strategically retreated into the jacuzzi, nursing a beer quietly, trying to escape the chaos. Mom was fully occupied attempting to manage the kids, aged 7 through 11, who were darting around wildly. Sophie and I greeted everyone politely, grabbed some food, and found ourselves cornered by my sisters, who immediately launched into criticism about us being late, not dressing appropriately for swimming, and generally killing the vibe. We brushed it off, accustomed to their habitual complaints. Not long after, things escalated. A couple of my nieces and nephews decided it would be hilarious to shove a neighbor into the pool. The neighbor managed to catch herself, avoiding a full dunk, but was visibly irritated. Claire and Olivia, however, erupted into laughter, finding their children's mischief delightful rather than reprimandable. Sophie and I exchanged uncomfortable glances, anticipating that this might not end well. Later, as I stood chatting near the edge of the pool, I spotted a trio of my nieces and nephews charging toward me. Realizing their intentions, I calmly sidestepped their clumsy attack. Instead of pushing me in, the kids tumbled headfirst into the pool themselves, their screams of surprise echoing loudly as they splashed into the water. What followed was pure chaos. Olivia and Claire, suddenly sobered by the sight of their kids flailing in the water, began screaming accusations at me for endangering their children. Two of the kids couldn't swim, a fact I'd assumed was obvious given their proximity to the pool and swimwear. Though initially startled, others quickly jumped in to assist. The children were pulled to safety, though terrified and bawling dramatically. As if things couldn't get worse, the kids had been filming their pranks on their parents' phones, which now lay at the pool's bottom. Mark, one of my brothers-in-law, attempted a clumsy rescue mission for the phones, but his drunken state rendered the task impossible. Meanwhile, accusations flew, and heated arguments erupted, directed mostly at Sophie and me for letting this happen. Deciding we'd had enough, Sophie and I left the chaos behind, determined to distance ourselves from the increasingly toxic atmosphere. Little did we know, that afternoon was merely the beginning of a much larger storm. After we left the disastrous barbecue, Sophie and I thought the worst was behind us. However, as the days passed, tensions continued to rise within our family. My parents were caught in the middle, clearly exhausted by the drama my sisters had caused but unwilling to directly confront them. Mom called a couple of days later, sounding distressed, to let us know the situation hadn't improved at all. Claire and Olivia, never ones to accept responsibility, had shifted all the blame onto Sophie and me, insisting we provoked the whole incident. They sent angry, accusatory texts, demanding we apologize and reimburse them for the expensive phones their kids had ruined during their poolside antics. I was stunned by their audacity but chose to ignore their messages initially, thinking it might help calm things down. Unfortunately, ignoring them only seemed to fuel their frustration. Claire and Olivia escalated their tactics, bombarding us with messages from new numbers after Sophie blocked their initial contacts. It became clear that they believed they could harass us into submission. Meanwhile, my parents, especially my father, began setting boundaries of their own. Fed up with my sister's constant dramatics, Dad firmly informed them that their behavior was unacceptable, banning them temporarily from visiting the family's mountain vacation home. This revelation seemed to shock my sisters deeply, especially since they had regularly used and enjoyed the property without restrictions. However, my father revealed an even greater surprise. Sophie and I had secretly bought the vacation home several years prior as a gift for my parents, allowing them complete control over its use. My parents had kept this information private to prevent jealousy among my siblings. Learning this, Claire and Olivia became livid, convinced that Sophie and I had deliberately humiliated them. In an attempt to restore peace, Sophie and I decided to continue our strategy of avoiding confrontation. Yet, Despite our efforts, my sister's sense of entitlement only intensified. One afternoon, Claire and Olivia showed up unannounced at our home, demanding to speak with us face to face. We were out at dinner, thankfully, avoiding a public confrontation. However, returning home, we found a hastily written note full of apologies mixed with passive-aggressive accusations. Realizing that ignoring the issue wouldn't work forever, Sophie and I resolved that it was time to communicate our boundaries. Little did we know, the storm was far from over, and the family drama would soon escalate beyond anything we could have anticipated. Despite our efforts to clearly define our boundaries, the conflict with Claire and Olivia didn't diminish. Instead, it escalated even further. Days after finding their unsettling note at our door, Sophie and I continued receiving relentless messages. My sisters oscillated between angry demands for access to the vacation property and desperate pleas for reconciliation, but their approach only deepened our resolve to maintain distance. The breaking point came one Thursday evening when Sophie and I returned from work to find Claire and Olivia waiting outside our house. Sophie suggested we drive past to avoid another confrontation, but my sisters had already spotted us. Reluctantly, I parked and braced for what I knew would be a draining encounter. Claire started immediately, her voice shaking with apparent indignation. She accused us of intentionally humiliating them in front of our parents and insisted that we were obligated to let them resume using the vacation home. Olivia chimed in, tearfully claiming we were punishing their children unfairly by restricting their access to the beloved family retreat. As they unleashed their frustrations, it became clear their resentment ran deeper than we had imagined. My sisters also demanded that Sophie and I financially support their children's future education, framing it as a familial duty we had shamefully neglected. The audacity left me momentarily speechless. Sophie, equally stunned, grasped my hand firmly, silently communicating her unwavering support. When I finally responded, I did so firmly, addressing each point with unwavering clarity. I highlighted their ongoing lack of accountability, their disrespectful attitudes towards Sophie and me, and their unfounded entitlement to our property and finances. The discussion quickly devolved into shouting, tears, and more accusations. Our peaceful neighborhood was disrupted by the spectacle. Eventually, my sisters left, furious and tearful. Afterward, Sophie and I sat in exhausted silence, recognizing that our family dynamic had been irreparably altered. Neither of us found joy in this realization. Instead, we felt profound sadness mingled with relief. That night, our phones erupted once again with messages from new, unfamiliar numbers, my sisters persisting in their campaign. Feeling overwhelmed, we finally decided to take drastic measures, complete no contact, blocking every potential number we could associate with them. We knew this decision would deeply affect our parents, who had been desperately trying to mediate. With a heavy heart, I informed my parents of our decision, stressing the importance of our emotional well-being. While they expressed sadness, they understood. Sophie and I knew that complete separation, though painful, was the only viable option left to protect ourselves from further emotional exhaustion. We could only hope this decision would finally bring peace back into our lives. Following our decision to go completely no contact, Sophie and I experienced an immediate sense of relief, though tinged with sadness. It was as if we could finally breathe freely, no longer anxious about unexpected visits or hostile messages. Still, the aftermath lingered, particularly with my parents, who found themselves caught in an uncomfortable middle ground. My father reached out several days after our announcement, his tone somber and apologetic. He assured us that while they respected our decision, he and my mother deeply mourned the fracturing of their family. My mom, especially, was heartbroken, finding it difficult to reconcile her daughter's stubbornness and entitlement with the family unity she had always cherished. We understood their pain, but reaffirmed that this choice was essential for our mental and emotional health. Interestingly, despite their discomfort, my parents decided to take a firm stance against Claire and Olivia's relentless pressure. They openly supported our choice, clearly communicating their disappointment in my sister's behavior. Dad even informed Claire and Olivia that they would no longer have unrestricted access to the mountain vacation property. To reinforce this boundary, he changed the locks and updated the security measures, actions that caused considerable distress and outrage among my sisters. To everyone's shock, Claire and Olivia, alongside their husbands Mark and Jason, responded with surprising aggression. Furious and desperate, they began a campaign of incessant complaints and demands, attempting to coerce my parents into reversing their decision. When their efforts failed, my sisters resorted to emotional manipulation, accusing my parents of favoritism and cruelty. My father, usually calm and collected, reached his breaking point. In a heated confrontation, he informed Claire and Olivia unequivocally that their behavior was unacceptable. My mother, deeply distressed by the escalation, echoed his sentiments, expressing her profound disappointment in their lack of maturity and compassion. Amidst this turmoil, Sophie and I remained determined to stay removed from the drama. We focused on repairing our emotional well-being and strengthening our own relationship. Still, despite our resolve, a sense of sorrow lingered, knowing our family might never recover fully from these deep wounds. Ultimately, we hoped our stance would send a clear message to my sisters. Entitlement and manipulation had no place in our lives. Although the path ahead seemed uncertain, Sophie and I felt a cautious optimism, determined to rebuild our peace, even if it meant redefining what family truly meant to us. The period that followed was relatively quiet, allowing Sophie and me to focus on healing and moving forward. Despite the emotional toll, our decision to cut off contact brought undeniable relief. Our daily lives regained a sense of calm, free from the continuous anxiety caused by unpredictable family drama. Nevertheless, beneath our newfound tranquility, a lingering sadness persisted, a quiet reminder of the broken family ties we had left behind. My parents continued their difficult task of navigating the fallout, determined to support us while still maintaining some level of relationship with Claire and Olivia. During this time, Dad kept us updated discreetly, often expressing his frustration with my sister's stubborn refusal to take accountability. Mom, while heartbroken, gradually began accepting the new reality, understanding that it was impossible to force harmony among us. Unexpectedly, however, new problems soon emerged. Claire and Olivia, unwilling to relinquish their perceived rights to the mountain vacation property, devised new ways to assert their claims. One morning, I received an alarming call from David, the caretaker we'd recently hired to oversee the property. He informed me that someone had attempted to gain unauthorized access, damaging both the entrance gate and the front door locks in the process. The security cameras captured clear footage of the intruders, Mark and Jason, my brothers-in-law. Their actions shocked and infuriated me, pushing me past the point of tolerance. Immediately, I informed local authorities and pressed charges for breaking and property damage. The ensuing confrontation escalated the already tense family situation. Claire and Olivia launched another campaign of harassment, accusing me of overreacting and deliberately trying to ruin their lives. Ignoring their emotional manipulation, Sophie and I firmly stood our ground, making it clear that consequences were necessary for their reckless actions. Our stance had a significant impact. My parents, although distressed by the severity of the situation, recognized the gravity of my sister's actions and offered their unwavering support. For the first time, it felt like our entire family finally acknowledged the damaging effects of my sister's entitlement and disrespect. While the legal process began to unfold, Sophie and I remained steadfast, hoping this incident would finally prompt Claire, Olivia, and their husbands to reflect genuinely on their behavior. Though uncertain of the future, we felt strengthened by our resolve, confident we were making the right choices to protect ourselves and set healthier boundaries moving forward. In the weeks following the attempted break-in, the situation took a significant toll on everyone involved, yet Sophie and I remained committed to protecting our peace. The legal procedures moved forward steadily, with Mark and Jason now facing serious charges for their reckless actions. Despite the stressful process, there was a sense of relief knowing that tangible consequences were finally being enforced. My parents, especially Dad, continued to show remarkable resilience. He provided quiet yet firm support, regularly updating us without forcing us into direct interactions. Mom, although emotionally worn, seemed increasingly determined to accept this harsh new reality. Her initial heartbreak gave way to a deeper understanding of the necessity of our actions, even if it meant redefining the dynamics within our family. Sophie and I maintained a cautious optimism, reinforced by the legal protections now clearly established. David, our caretaker, was invaluable during this time. His vigilance and detailed documentation of the property's condition ensured that Mark and Jason's actions were thoroughly documented, leaving no room for misunderstanding or excuses. Meanwhile, Claire and Olivia's attempts at manipulation continued, albeit less aggressively. Their approach had shifted slightly. Rather than confrontational, they now adopted a tone of victimhood, lamenting to my parents about being ostracized from family activities and pleading for reconciliation. Thankfully, my parents remained unwavering, recognizing these tactics as merely another form of manipulation. With each passing day, the reality became clearer for everyone. Our decision to enforce boundaries and pursue legal action wasn't just about punishment, It was essential for establishing respect and accountability within our fractured family. Although saddened by the ongoing estrangement, Sophie and I knew we had made the right choice. One afternoon, after a particularly challenging week, Sophie and I drove up to the mountain property, not to dwell on recent events, but to reclaim the space for ourselves. Standing together, overlooking the peaceful valley, we felt a renewed sense of purpose and strength. The tranquility of the landscape reminded us of why we had fought so hard to protect our peace. As we prepared to leave, we reaffirmed our commitment not only to each other, but to a future free from unnecessary drama and toxicity. While the scars from this ordeal would remain, they served as powerful reminders of the importance of maintaining clear boundaries, protecting our well-being, and nurturing relationships built on mutual respect and understanding. Months passed, and gradually, the storm of family conflict began to calm. Sophie and I maintained our no-contact policy, steadfastly protecting the peace we had worked so hard to regain. The legal matters involving Mark and Jason were finally resolved with consequences appropriate to their actions, sending a clear message that boundaries had to be respected. Throughout this period, my relationship with my parents evolved significantly. Dad and Mom remained firmly supportive, yet they grieved the permanent changes in our family dynamic. Our interactions with them became deeper and more reflective, filled with honest discussions about trust, boundaries, and the importance of mutual respect. Though saddened by the situation, they acknowledged the necessity of our choices, finding solace in the strength and integrity we had demonstrated. Claire and Olivia eventually ceased their attempts to manipulate the family narrative, perhaps finally understanding that their actions had permanently damaged our relationship. Without the constant stress of their manipulation, Sophie and I rediscovered a sense of genuine tranquility, free to fully appreciate our lives together. David continued managing the mountain property expertly, becoming not just a caretaker but a trusted friend. His ongoing vigilance provided invaluable peace of mind, allowing us to enjoy visits without fear of further incidents. The property itself became symbolic, a testament to our strength and resolve in the face of adversity. One peaceful evening, sitting on the deck and watching the sunset illuminate the valley below, Sophie and I reflected on our journey. The challenges we faced had tested our resilience, yet ultimately strengthened our bond. We recognized that the scars left behind would never fully fade, but they no longer defined us. Instead, they served as lasting reminders of our commitment to each other and the importance of clear, healthy boundaries. Looking forward, we knew our future might not include reconciliation with Claire and Olivia. While there was sadness in accepting this, there was also clarity and liberation. Our definition of family had expanded to include those who genuinely respected and supported us, building relationships based on mutual trust and kindness. As we drove back home that evening, hand in hand, we felt a deep sense of contentment. The path had been difficult, but we emerged stronger, wiser, and more appreciative of the tranquility we'd fought so hard to protect. Together, Sophie and I embraced this new chapter, confident in our ability to handle whatever the future might bring, guided always by love, respect, and unwavering support for one another. As the months continued, the turbulence within our family finally began to settle. Sophie and I maintained a firm stance on our no-contact decision, fiercely safeguarding the tranquility we had painstakingly rebuilt. Mark and Jason's legal matters were conclusively resolved, sending an unmistakable signal about the necessity of respecting boundaries. During this period, my relationship with my parents underwent a significant transformation. Though they remained supportive, the permanent changes within the family deeply affected them. Our conversations with Mom and Dad became more meaningful and candid, addressing topics of trust, boundaries, and mutual respect openly. Despite their sadness over the fractured family, they respected and understood the necessity of our actions, finding comfort in the strength and honesty Sophie and I had displayed. Eventually, Claire and Olivia ceased their manipulative tactics, possibly realizing the irreparable harm they had caused. Without their constant interference, Sophie and I rediscovered a serene and genuine happiness, allowing us to fully embrace our lives together without hesitation or fear. David, our trusted caretaker, continued to oversee the mountain property diligently, becoming a valuable ally and friend. His careful supervision gave us the peace of mind we needed, ensuring that each visit remained peaceful and secure. The vacation home gradually became symbolic, representing our resilience and determination to protect our well-being at all costs. One calm evening, as Sophie and I sat quietly on the deck overlooking the valley, we reflected deeply on our journey. We recognized that the trials we had faced not only tested our strength but ultimately strengthened our bond. The emotional scars from our family conflicts remained, but they served as powerful reminders of the importance of clear, healthy boundaries and mutual respect. Looking ahead, We acknowledged that reconciliation with Claire and Olivia seemed unlikely. While there was genuine sadness in accepting this truth, there was also a profound sense of freedom. Our concept of family had expanded beyond blood ties to include those who genuinely supported and cherished us, built on authentic trust and kindness. Driving home that evening, hand in hand, Sophie and I felt deeply content. The road had been challenging, but it had shaped us into stronger, wiser individuals who now deeply appreciated the peace we'd fought tirelessly to achieve. With hearts full of hope and clarity, we embraced this new chapter together, confident in our ability to face whatever life might bring, guided always by our enduring love, respect, and unwavering commitment to each other. With time, the tumultuous chapter with my family gradually faded into the background, becoming merely a part of our past rather than a constant weight on our shoulders. Sophie and I continued building our life together, each day bringing renewed peace and a deeper appreciation for the tranquility we had fought so hard to reclaim. Our relationship with my parents settled into a comfortable rhythm. Though the pain of fractured family bonds lingered, my parents respected our choices, understanding that peace and mutual respect were paramount. Visits with them became pleasant and devoid of tension, filled instead with genuine warmth and meaningful conversations. It was a bittersweet transformation, yet one that brought undeniable growth to us all. Claire and Olivia, along with their husbands, gradually faded from our lives entirely. While I occasionally felt moments of melancholy about our estrangement, I recognized the necessity of this separation. True reconciliation seemed improbable, given the depth of past wounds and the lack of meaningful accountability on their part. Our peace had been hard-won, and we were determined to protect it. David remained a steadfast friend and caretaker of our mountain property, ensuring its continued serenity and safety. Over time, the property evolved into a haven of comfort and peace for Sophie and me, a place free from the shadows of past conflicts. We often spent quiet weekends there, soaking in the beauty of the surrounding nature and appreciating the peace we had cultivated. One cool autumn evening, as Sophie and I sat near a warm fire, we spoke softly about the journey we'd shared. Our hearts were filled with gratitude, not just for overcoming the challenges we'd faced, but for the strength and resilience we'd discovered in ourselves and each other along the way. Looking toward the future, we felt hopeful, ready to embrace whatever new experiences life would bring. The hardships we'd faced had taught us invaluable lessons about trust, respect, and the power of standing united against adversity. Though the past had tested us greatly, our shared experiences had woven an unbreakable bond, a foundation stronger than ever before. With smiles on our faces and warmth in our hearts, we realized that our story, with all its ups and downs, had ultimately led us to this moment of profound contentment. Hand in hand, we committed to cherishing every day ahead, grateful for the peace we'd found, and confident in our love and support for one another as we closed this chapter and began anew.